In chess, there are some things that people do to show respect to their opponents. If you're playing over the board chess, you would shake your opponent's hand before the game, shake their hand after the game. At least that was how you did it before 2020. Maybe it's different now, but not adjusting all the pieces while it's your opponent's turn and they're trying to think. And another one is resigning the game when it's hopelessly lost as a sign of respect to your opponent. They're good enough. They're going to be able to win the game from here. I should resign and save us both some time. A lot of people have this opinion. Well, my opinion is that if you're rated under 1,000, you should never do that. And if you're rated under 2,000, you probably really shouldn't do it also. It's only at the very, very high levels where that's an acceptable thing to do. At my level, when I'm playing, if I blunder my queen and I continue to play on, most likely my opponent's going to take all my pieces, promote 5 pawns to knights, and checkmate me with 5 knights, right? Well, this is a game between Gumbo Shrimper and Glendon's Creek. These are two random people that I've never met before, never seen before. I just happened to come across this game. Don't even ask how. And what we have here is a massive queen blunder. And I have to wonder, how many of you guys playing this as white would resign immediately right here? Just, I'm done. I'm not going to finish this out. This is hard to watch, hard to play, right? Let's take a look at this game and see how we ended up here. Very briefly, we're just going to go through this. And then we're going to see how the game finished from here. And really, hopefully, you'll understand why I say never, never resign if you're under 1,000. All right, so we've got a d4 opening. We have the little London setup here. And both players are doing a pretty good job of developing their pieces, although I think black has kind of blocked their bishop in here, which I don't love. But other than that, pretty good. Now, knight to e4 is not really a great move for black. White doesn't see why they move forward. If you're wondering, you can actually grab the knight, jump here to g5, which attacks the pawn, and black has no good way to defend that. Yes, you can play f5. That's really the only option you have to defend the pawn. The problem is you create weaknesses here, you create weaknesses here, and the best thing for white to do is just bust it open right away with d5. And notice this, the queen is coming in. There's almost checkmate. Even if you try to defend, the bishop's coming in. If you try to escape with the king, the knight's coming in for the fork, and you can just see there's a lot of problems, which is why really the best thing for black to do in this position is probably just abandon the pawn and move on with the game. Develop a piece, you lose this, game goes on, you're down a pawn, whatever. Anyway, little bonus for you there. White didn't see that. They brought the knight forward, and we just get a bunch of trades. We trade here, we trade here. A few moves later, we trade something else. And this is pretty common, actually, at the lower level. Lots of people like to trade pieces for some reason, which nothing wrong with that, but just pointing that out. Here we go, another trade, okay. And now is where it starts to get interesting. White decides to go on the offensive here and create actually a pretty nice checkmate threat. I really like the idea here, and after g6, personally, if I'm playing this, I'm going to follow this up with the h-pawn, Mr. Harry over here, and I think black's going to have a hard time defending this. But instead, Glendon's Creek decides to go with queen to h5. Now, it's a clever move because the pawn's pinned, so you can't take it if you're black, and white does want to take here, but it's pretty easy for black to deal with that, and they do play a good move, king to h7, which not only defends the pawn, but also attacks the queen. And Glendon's Creek notices the queen, but blunders it anyway over here. And this has got to be a heartbreaking position to be in, right? I mean, all the pieces have been traded except the queens and the rooks. Now you lose your queen. You've got 2 rooks that aren't really in a great position. You literally have no counterplay, 0 compensation for this lost queen. But Glendon's Creek does not resign, and they decide to play on. They castle, so their king is safe for now. And Gumbo Shrimper says, well, I got the queen. I'm just going to start taking stuff. Why not? Takes 2 free pawns. I mean, go for it. Plays h5. Okay. Brings the rook into the game. Can't really complain with him there. Grabs a pawn. Throws in a check. Grabs another pawn. I mean, he's just taking everything. Grabs another pawn. I mean, this is great. But wait a second. Glendon's Creek has a little bit of life left and goes for a pin on the queen. Now, if you would like to pause, what do you think black's best move is? There's actually 2 options here, but one is better than the other. Well, if you had a chance to look at that, one option for black here is to simply just sack the queen and say, look, I'm already up I'm still going to be up a rook. I've got a million pawns to use here, and I'm going to win this relatively easily. Totally fine option there. The other one, even better, is to say, look, I'll just block the pin, and here we go. I'm not going to lose my queen, and I'm going to have checkmate in a few moves. Stockfish says it's mate in 8, depending on what white plays, of course. But no, Gumbo Shrimper decides to get a little too fancy and plays rook to g3 check. Now, for all I know, this could have been a mouse slip. Maybe they were trying to go rook h3 and the rook didn't make it there. Maybe they thought after this capture that they were going to be able to do a little check with the queen and get out of this. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe they missed the pawn. I don't know. But now white is not quite totally losing as much. Now, again, Gumbo Shrimper should have just taken the rook and say, okay, well, I still have a million pawns and I'm going to win this endgame probably. And that's pretty straightforward. But what do they do instead? They play the move, wait for it, g5, probably thinking that the rook was going to take and they would be able to trade this way. But as you can see, white doesn't have to take with the rook, and they didn't. They took with the pawn. And all of a sudden, white now has 2 rooks, and black only has 1, and the queen is gone. And the funny thing is, even at this point, it's still a relatively even position because black has so many pawns. And if black was smart about this and used these pawns in a careful manner and used the king to support, I could see black winning this game very easily, actually. If you start pushing these pawns down correctly and don't lose them, I could totally see black winning this game. But instead, they start dropping like flies. And the next thing you know, it's over. White wins the game. White literally wins the game. And that's it. And I want to point out to you, this is the same game going back. Where is it at? This is the same game going back right here, where white literally lost the queen for free. I hope this illustrates why you never resign if you're rated under 1,000. The chances that your opponent blunders the queen right back or does something crazy are too great. They're just too great. You just can't resign. I mean, look at this. Losing everything. There's no hope for white. There's no hope for white. But wait a second. Who could have imagined the following 2 moves? 1, 2. Who could have imagined that, right? Please, guys, don't resign if you're rated under 1,000. And while we're talking about blunders, if you want to see 6 times that grandmasters got tricked and lost in less than 15 moves, then you're going to want to watch this video right here. Enjoy.